How do we control ourselves?
Well, by doing what we would do to control someone else, which is to manipulate the environment. Rather than just go with an act of will, we change the world in which we live, and if we're successful and skillful, we can change our behavior.
Hang on tight to reality, because that will keep you healthier in your mind and your body. It will make you stronger, keep you stronger. But it's really hard right now, isn't it? They're lying to us about everything, and even worse, they are putting out exact contradictory messaging about almost any topic I could bring up.
I never really thought that I would see and have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children. I never thought I'd ever... Anyway,
Think about it. You can find news stories that say the opposite things on any given day about the same topic. Except, of course, when they're on a propaganda push and they have one particular message they want to get out. Then they'll all unite and tell you the same thing. And as I've warned, they've now taken over the alternative media space. By and large, they've taken it over with a combination of de-boosting, like this Twitter, now known as X, this thing where they're calling it freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach.
And we've introduced a new policy to your specific point about hate speech called freedom of speech, not reach. So if you're going to post something that's illegal or against the law, you're gone, zero tolerance. But more importantly, if you're going to post something that is lawful, but it's awful, you get labeled. You get labeled, you get de-amplified, which means it cannot be shared, and it is certainly demonetized. Back to your direct point about
brand safety.
Brand safety. So they are protected from the risk of being next to that content. And it's also why it's really important to note that once a post is labeled and it can't be shared, and the user sees that, 30% of the time, they take it down themselves.
So if you say something they don't like, which Linda Yuckaroni, I call her, the new CEO of Twitter, she says, well, if it's lawful speech but awful speech, you just won't be seen. We'll do our best to make sure that those messages don't get amplified on the platform.
Many of the practical human applications of operant learning have come out of your research with animals. This seems a big jump to many people.
Very big jump. We're all animals, you see. Of course, human behavior is extraordinarily different, much more complex than animal behavior, but the fundamental principles are probably there. We discovered the power of shaping behavior with positive reinforcement back in the 40s. We were working with pigeons in connection with a war project. And we discovered that if we gave a hungry pigeon food at just the right time, we could get the pigeon to do almost anything.
And of course, they're doing the Skinner box operant conditioning on anyone who is echoing the messages that they want. It's like a social credit. I mean, B.F. Skinner came up with this thing where he would subtly, there was no instructions given to the subjects, and in fact a lot of subjects were animals, but some of them were little children, toddlers. He would just put them in a box with a button to press or a lever to press, and if they did it the way the controllers of the experiment wanted them to do it, a reward would happen. But nobody knew this. Like, they didn't explain this. The kid or pigeon or whatever had to figure it out for themselves. Like, eventually it would dawn on the kid that if I did move X, a treat would appear. They weren't told, like I said. So what happened, and this went for the pigeons too, and in the pigeon experiment was even more subtle. It's unbelievable when you really think about this. So they put a pigeon in a box with 3 buttons and a treat dispenser, food dispenser of some sort. And the pigeon, if it turned to the left after pressing the button, it would get a reward. I mean, the pigeon eventually figured this out. So think what they can do with people who have way more reasoning skills, right? But it's so subtle. And it wasn't even, they do it with inconsistency. This is another mind-blowing part of it. Is that if they inconsistently rewarded the pigeon or the toddler, then it entrained the behavior even more deeply. So sometimes you wouldn't get the reward, even though you did the thing that they wanted you to do. Which, think of slot machines. This is how they work as well. That is how they trap you as well. It's called operant conditioning, and it doesn't punish. It gives subtle rewards that your own brain has to puzzle through over the course of hours or days. So you don't even really realize you're figuring it out. You don't even really realize what's happening. You're craving the reward, and somehow you know that if you turn to the left, so to speak, you're going to get the reward. And just think how perfect that analogy actually is for what's happening today. They do want you to turn to the left, the political left. And I don't like these labels anymore, but I'm trapped in our language paradigm. And even the alternative media is making you do that now. Even the people who say they're on the right, I'm telling you, if you analyze it, and I have, they are still the ones who have risen to the top, the ones who have the biggest audiences, the ones who all cross-promote one another, including Tucker Carlson and Jordan Peterson, who at first blush shouldn't be on the same page, right? Because Jordan Peterson is a self-described liberal, and Tucker Carlson is a self-described conservative. But they're both steering you in the same direction, as the left is.
Positive reinforcement, or what people call rewards, that is an extremely powerful technique, and we've only discovered the power fairly recently, strangely enough. We tend to control people through aversive control, punishing people for misbehaving or threatening them until they behave the ways we want them to behave and so on. But you can, with positive techniques, get better effects, and effects that we all like because we feel free when we are controlled through positive reinforcement. We don't feel free when we are being coerced or threatened with punishment.
Can't you see that Jordan Peterson is opposed to everything the WEF stands for? No, I cannot.
I'm wearing the when I'm required to. So that's the best I can do with that. I have no particular insight with regards to this. So, I've got the vaccine. So that's a partial answer on my part. But I understand the position of those who don't want to take it. And I would be unwilling to compel them by force, that's for sure, because that's not the right approach. Although I would encourage people to let's get the hell over this.
Next point. Here's something Jordan Peterson retweeted from the Legatum Prosperity Index. And if you notice here, it's actually about immunizations. They say the bottom 40 countries in the world, which includes countries such as Mozambique, Haiti, and Cameroon, have seen vast improvements in reducing poverty, improving education, and creating better health. And the chart they use is an immunization chart. So Peterson retweeted that. What does that tell you? That he is not fighting, say, Bill Gates. Someone says, I thought you were a psychology professor. When did you become a climate expert? And he says, when I served for 2 years on a Canadian subcommittee on sustainable development for the UN Secretary General. And here is Jordan Peterson yesterday retweeting Bjorn Lomborg, who says global warming is real and man-made. But it's not the end of the world. It's a manageable problem. So is he fighting the WEF? Is he fighting the UN? Is he fighting the WHO? Is he fighting the great big pharma manufacturers? No, he's not. Both sides are pushing you to reject the extremes and therefore come into the center. That sounds like a good thing on the surface, and it could be. This is one of those cultural moments, I believe, where we could actually, as organic human beings with thoughts of our own, and if we can clear the fog and get our priorities straight, I do believe that those who consider themselves to be on the left and those who consider themselves to be on the right can agree on some seriously important issues. But this is the whole job of the media and of social media and education. It's to make you go to a center point that they have pre-chosen. They have pre-selected. It's not really a center. And it won't really be the people coming together on the issues of import. It will be what they have decided is important. And you can go and look and you can tell what it is. They write it down for you. It's all the same thing. Eliminate poverty, switch to renewable energy, embrace digital technologies, spread income around the world. Basically, both the right and the left are leading you into that as if it's the center, as if it's what people are really concerned about. But also the over-the-top messaging about the illnesses can also itself cause illness. Psychosomatic illness and symptoms are real. That really happens. You manifest illness in your body because you're scared and because you're afraid and because you're anxious and because you feel trapped and because people are telling you contradictory information all the time and you don't know which way to go with it. So try hard to hang on tight to what you really see and you really know. And I'm not telling you to throw discernment and concern out the window and not to worry about anything, just, live day by day. But you do, I think we all do, and maybe in some ways I'm talking to myself here more than you. We do have to live day by day. We don't know what's true coming from media and social media. We don't. Or the governments. We get contradictory messages, and I believe they are doing it on purpose to crack our brains, to crack our minds. People who get too many contradictory messages and who can't hang on tight to what is real, they become super compliant. Another video I did ages ago was called the Alice in Wonderland Technique. And this is out of the CIA, something called a Kubark manual. And it is also no-touch torture. It's called the Alice in Wonderland Technique. And what they'll do when they have someone they're interrogating that they want to break, they'll have two different interrogators come in. And they will say contradictory things. And they will say complete nonsense things to the person they're interrogating. They will make it so that the guy they're interrogating cannot make heads or tails of what's happening. He doesn't know what is even wanted. He doesn't even know really what they want from him. He doesn't know why they would be saying the things they're saying. He doesn't understand why they sound crazy. These interrogators will end up sounding crazy to this guy and just increase the pressure on him until he breaks. He can't take it anymore. He can't take the environment, the literal verbal environment that's created around him. And of course, it's worse for a prisoner like that, someone in a room with a glaring light and only contact is these two crazy people coming in and out of the room saying all this nonsense to him, because he can't escape. He has nothing to hang on to. He can't go to the supermarket or take a walk in the downtown streets to get his head right again. We can. And granted, with more and more people sort of giving over to the insanity, like I'll point you back to masks and outdoor lineups and plexiglass and the hand sanitizer and all of that. That was crazy. And yet a vast majority of people did it or silently went along with it. That was crazy. So going out and trying to get contact with real people in that time was very difficult. And I know a lot of people who struggled mightily with hanging on to, okay, this is crazy, I gotta remember, this is crazy. People struggled because what was reflected back to them in their environment was so consistently crazy that you sometimes ask yourself, isn't it easier just to go along with this? Isn't it easier to just give up? I know you see the parallel to that CIA interrogation technique, the Alice in Wonderland technique. It was very similar what they put us through. You add that to the Amnesty International report of torture, no-touch torture, psychological torture, and Biderman's chart of coercion, and you have a perfect recipe for breaking the minds and the wills and even making people sick, maybe making people die of stress. That's what it was. But they've expanded it, in my opinion, they've expanded it since then to every subject that anybody might be interested in out there. Anybody might be watching out there. I'm finally seeing the cracks form in even stuff like the real estate industry or the real estate commentators and people who write about real estate and people who have been in the mortgage industry their whole lives and things like that. They are finally cracking a little bit because they're now subject of this same sort of Alice in Wonderland technique that has been in play for other subjects over the years. And it's interesting to watch. It's interesting to see their faces now cloudy and almost turning zombie-ish because they no longer know what to say. They no longer know which is up and which is down. Nothing makes sense to them anymore, and that's exactly where they want people. Nothing makes sense anymore. So hang on tight to what is real. What are you seeing where you are? What are you experiencing where you are? What is real where you are? What are your neighbors doing? What are your friends doing? What's the cost of food? How are farmers doing in your area? All of that, that's real. And you can drive to the place and see it for yourself. What do you know is real? Do you know that, for another example, being a liar is a bad thing? That's real. Being a liar is a bad thing. It causes harm to the people around you. It causes frauds. It causes pain. But in our society, everybody's lying about everything. Shouldn't say everybody. The people who seek to control you are making good use of lies coming from social media, coming from foreign governments, coming from our own government, coming from educators. And sometimes I think the educators don't even know they're lying, but they are. And of course, coming from the mainstream news. I saw a perfect example of an insane lie just yesterday. It was, this is kind of boring, but let me just say it quickly. Canada's had some economic data come out the other day, and it was about the inflation rate, and supposedly it was good news. I don't think it was good news, but anyway, that's how they posited it through the mainstream media. Good news on Canadian inflation data, and then they said drives down the United States dollar in relation to the Canadian dollar. USD CAD, they said, retracts on Canada's inflation data. But then you go to the chart of USD CAD, the exchange rate between our currencies. You go to the chart. There wasn't even 10 minutes of retraction. There was no retraction. It was a line up. There was no retraction. So you just put this news headline beside the chart and you can see the gaslighting. You can see the lie. And they're just counting on people only seeing one of those things, I guess. And for those people like me who look at both of those things and say the real estate commentator world and the finance commentator world that I'm seeing now finally start show cracks, and they're like, what's going on? They see those kind of things and they're just exasperated. Of course they are. Because they see the lie, finally. So what do? You hang on tight to what is real. That chart is the truth. The headline is the lie. And you got to do this with everything. It's why I've started ignoring certain news stories, like, for example, the Ukraine war. I don't care. It's not that I don't care, but I have no capability of knowing what's true with that. Zero. If a missile lands in the downtown of my city, then I can go and see what I can see. But before that happens, it's just pointless to pay any attention to stuff like that, stories like that. It's pointless. So when I made the video a little while back and I said I want to get out of the circus, I want to get out from under the big top, that's basically what the conclusion I came to. We have to do things in the real world right here with only a little bit of an eye on the crazy stories that are happening around us. Because we don't know. But what we can know, here's something else that's real, add to your list. We are in total psychological war from all angles. Because that is the power of big data now. That is the power of the handlers that are involved in every top-level personality, social media influencer, educator, mainstream media, politician. That's the level of it now. Maybe they never did see those.
After what he'd said on stage in Sacramento, Harley Pasternak was trying to shut him up. Pasternak, he said, was not simply a trainer, but instead an agent of ideological control. Pasternak's job was to keep West from straying from the script, and he's willing to use powerful drugs to do it. That's what he said. But very few people took that claim seriously. In fact, it was exactly the kind of thing a crazy person would say. My trainer drugged me into submission. He's trying to make me into a zombie. Right. Sure he did. Have another olanzapine shot, Kanye. You look tired.
And then you got to say to yourself, if they're doing that to them, if it's possible for them to do it to them, it's possible they're doing it to all of us. Like didn't you say to yourself, how can these people believe this when there's so much information to contradict it? I know you must have said that to yourself. And I know that the people on the other side of it said the same thing to themselves. I know they did. We all heard them. That stuff was published everywhere. So, we don't know what's real and what's not real in a lot of areas. But we can hang on tight to what we do know is real. We can. And we can also hang on tight to those visions we have, those memories also that we have of people being real and human, kind and considerate, balanced, fair, unreactive. You know, like, for example, I went through in my life an ice storm where the power was out for days and days, and it looked like a ice bomb went off. It looked like our city had been bombed, and then ice covered everything. It was crazy, but it was also beautiful because it brought out the best in everybody, and that was real. The trucker protest Even though, yes, of course it got co-opted, or maybe it was a psyop from the beginning, it doesn't matter, because what ended up happening was the vast majority of the people who were involved were real. The support all along the highway, from coast to coast in this huge country, I'm getting goosebumps even thinking about it, was real. And that's a beautiful thing. So, yeah. Hang on to what you know is real, because you've got to stay mentally strong. You've got to stay mentally healthy. You've got to be productive in this world. You've got to remain kind and forgiving and open as you keep your boundaries firmly established. It's difficult. But I know we can do it. I know we can do it. We can do it. We are doing it. We've done it. Don't crack now. One more thing. Kind of unrelated, but not really. I received a package in the mail from, I think it was Belgium. I apologize, but the court case is going before the European courts. And the reason this got sent to me was because I inspired it. My video about whether lockdowns were torture, based on the Amnesty International report of 1972 and Biderman's chart of coercion, which was included in that report, the no-touch torture methods. Because I did that video, and it got picked up by others, which was super, and they did their own versions of it. Thank you, Greg Reese did a great version of it. Because that happened, this court case has made its way to a high court in the EU. And I haven't read the pleadings yet. I haven't read the paper yet, or whatever it's called, which was sent to me. It's very long. I will have a look at that soon and perhaps do a video on it. Because this is tremendous. I mean, there have been times when I have wondered whether I've helped or hurt with my videos. And it certainly took a whack out of me, to be honest with you, but I would not change a thing. I dedicated myself to that project for way more than full-time hours for a long time. The whole thing, my whole career making videos. And it did I did suffer somewhat for that. Again, I did it gladly, and I would do it all again. But I sometimes have wondered whether I've helped or hurt. Have I been like one of those pigeons in the Skinner box? Was I actually being pushed around to keep going by the rewards I got for doing it? So in other words, was it organic, or was my take on things pressured by operant conditioning? And then I say to myself, you're crazy, because do you know how many slings and arrows you took? Do you know how they came after you with YouTube and CBC News and 60 Minutes and the Wall Street Journal and PayPal, eliminating your account, and you couldn't fight back, and you had no voice, and you lost your lawsuit, and blah, blah, on and on. And the toll it took on my family and my health, and yeah. So hopefully the support I received was real and not some campaign to push a narrative from unseen forces beyond my control. I don't know. But then I see stuff like this lawsuit against the authorities who brought in lockdown and the vax mandates and all that in Europe, who decimated small businesses and killed a lot of people. with their protocols and their misinformation. I see this, and they tell me that this lawsuit is because of my video that I did with the torture. Well, I can hold on tight to that, can't I? That's real. And if it hadn't have been for all of you who listened, who support, who share, who comment, who thumbs up, who did write me letters. I used to get boxes of letters, guys. It was unbelievable. It was so great. If it hadn't have been for all of that, this wouldn't have happened. And we'll see where this lawsuit goes. We know that a lot of these courts are captured, but we don't know what God has in store for that, do we? We will wait and see.
With a powerful tool like operant conditioning, do we not also face dangers? Can it?
Any science has its dangers. Think of the munitions industry, what they've done. Think of what has been done with atomic physics. And if the wrong people get control of behavioral techniques exclusively, we would be in very serious trouble.